Okay, start reading. Still, whatever.
Yeah, still, whatever the precise distinctions of their metaphysical ideas, the practical difference between the Sankhya and Yoga, as developed by the Gita, is the same as that which now exists between Vedantic yogas of knowledge and of works. And the practical results of the difference are also the same. The Sankhya proceeded like the Vedantic yoga of knowledge by the buddhi, by the discriminating intelligence. It arrived by reflective thought, vichara, at right discrimination, viveka, of the true nature of the soul and of the imposition on it of the works of Prakriti through attachment and identification. Just as the Vedantic method arrives by the same means at the right discrimination of the true nature of the self and of the imposition on it of cosmic appearances by mental illusion, which leads to egoistic identification and attachment. In the Vedantic method, Maya ceases for the soul by its return to its true and eternal status as the one self, the Brahman, and the cosmic action disappears. In the Sankhya method, the working of the gunas falls to rest by the return of the soul to its true and eternal status as the inactive Purusha, and the cosmic action ends. The Brahman of the Mayavadins is silent, immutable, and inactive. So too is the Purusha of the Sankhya. Therefore, for both ascetic renunciation of life and works is a necessary means of liberation. But for the yoga of the Gita, as for the Vedantic yoga of works, action is not only a preparation but itself the means of liberation. And it is the justice of this view which the Gita seeks to bring out with such an unceasing force and insistence. An insistence, unfortunately, which could not prevail in India against the tremendous tide of Buddhism, was lost afterwards in the intensity of ascetic illusionism and the fervor of world shunning saints and devotees, and is only now beginning to exercise its real and salutary influence on the Indian mind. Renunciation is indispensable, but the true renunciation is the inner rejection of desire and egoism. Without that, the outer physical abandoning of works is a thing unreal and ineffective. With it ceases even to be necessary, although it is not forbidden. Knowledge is essential. There is no higher force for liberation, but works with knowledge are also needed. By the union of knowledge and works, the soul dwells entirely in the Brahmic status, not only in repose and inactive calm, but in the very midst and stress and violence of action. Devotion is all important, but works with devotion are also important. By the union of knowledge, devotion, and works, the soul is taken up into the highest status of the Ishvara to dwell there in the Purushottama, who is master at once of the eternal spiritual calm and the eternal cosmic activity. This is the synthesis of the Gita.
Yeah. Okay. So, very nice para. I will discuss the thing. So, before we start reading, the basic idea of what he is saying in this para. You remember, first the Arjuna is being told by Sri Krishna that you have to give up works. And he is also telling that you have to be engaged in works. So he gets puzzled and he says, what the hell are you talking? You are talking in very mixed language and I can't understand what you're saying. Be precise. So then he is explaining what he means by inaction. Inaction and yet doing action. How is that possible? So this is what basically he is saying. So he is explaining the difference in the Sankhya philosophy, then the Vedantic philosophy, Advaita, Then he is also talking of Gita's combination of the two, and then we shall also see what Sridhar is saying in the integral yoga. So these four things we have to be very clear what he is saying. So in the Sankhya philosophy, which is very similar to the Jnana yoga, okay, what do? You distinguish between your impermanent self, which is your body, mind, life, and your permanent self, which is the soul. You have to make a difference between the two. The soul is eternal, it is unborn, it is forever, it is something permanent. But the body, mind, life, which is the Prakriti, is something created and it will disappear in time. You are not the body, mind, life, you are the pure soul which will live forever. So this is what you have to do. The soul is imprisoned in the body, mind, life, and it has to escape from there. When it escapes and goes out, you will feel yourself stationed above the head. You won't feel yourself in the chest area or even in the head. You will feel yourself that you are outside here in the higher above the head. Sometimes they say even 1 foot above, you feel like that. Okay, and so this is the Sankhya method, which is very similar also to the Raj Yoga. You go on saying to yourself, Neti, Neti, I am not the body, I am not the vital, I am not the mind, but I am pure soul. Okay, this is the method. Now, this is the Sankhya and the Vedanta philosophy. Okay, and then in the Gita, it says that both are to be done. You have to give up works and you have to also do works. So, what is meant by that? Not renouncing physically the physical actions. So, I don't do anything in the physical. I reduce my activities in the physical world to a minimum. I don't do any work. I don't do anything. I don't. I give up all physical. I may not. I may go to the extent of even not wearing clothes. Okay, that it happens in Jainism. Okay, and they even do fasting. Minimum food, minimum clothes, minimum activity. This is the outward renunciation. But in the Gita, the renunciation is not supposed to be outward but inward. In other words, the desire for food, for clothes, for action, for wealth, for fame, this is to be given up. But you can continue to do work in the physical world. You can do your job, you can do your profession, but you must give up the desire for the fruit of works. This is the Gita's definition of renunciation of works. Outward works, not necessary to give up, but the inward desire, you have to cut at the root. Then there is no problem. Then you can continue to do whatever you are doing. Okay. If you are, to make it very, very precise, okay, suppose I am very fond of rasgullas, okay. I am eating rasgullas in the normal consciousness with greed and desire, okay. Then the Jnana Yoga says, and the Mayavada also says, give up. Don't eat rasgullas at all because it will give you desire. So, but the other yogas are saying, give up, Gita is saying, give up the desire in the mind. Then if you eat or not eat, it doesn't matter at all. Because if you don't give up the desire, when you don't get rasgullas, you will suffer. So therefore, desire will give you pleasure, but it will also give you suffering. So if you give up the desire in the mind, whether you eat or not makes no difference. Tomorrow, if the rasgulla is not there, you will be absolutely calm and quiet. You will not be disturbed. This is the solution of the Gita. Not the giving up necessarily of physical works, but you have to give up the desire in the mind. That is the renunciation required. That's what he's saying. What about Srimada's yoga? In Srimada's yoga, and the giving up of physical is not compulsory. You can, you may not. It's not that you should not. But in Srimada's yoga, you have to continue with your normal activities, okay, and cut the desire at the root there. Because if you don't work in the physical world, okay, then how will you have power in the physical world? Swamda wants you to work in the physical world and become a channel for the divine to work through you. Okay, you become the lighthouse in the physical world. And he is sending the light through you, and you are circulating this light, love, influence in the physical world, and it is having an effect. So this is the what he is discussing in this paragraph. Okay. So now we'll go into the details. Still, whatever the precise distinctions in their metaphysical ideas, the practical difference between Sankhya and Yoga. Remember, Sankhya is the Jnana Yoga, and Yoga, as understood in the Gita, is the Karma Yoga, doing works in the physical world. As developed by the Gita, is the same as that which now exists between Vedantic yogas of knowledge and of works. So, Vedantic yoga of knowledge, lose your identification with body, mind, life. Na iti, nati, neti, neti, neti. And what about the yoga? You continue to do works and offer them to the divine. That's another way of getting liberation, getting mukti, moksha. Okay. So these are the two. So this is the Gita's method is the Vedantic method. That's what Swami is saying. It's the same which now exists between Vedantic yogas of knowledge and of works. And the practical results of the difference are also the same. And what is the practical result? Liberation. Whether you follow the path of Neti Neti or of Karma Yoga, by sacrificing your works to the divine, the result will be liberation. The result is the same in both. Okay? So this is what Sendhu is saying. The result, practical results of the difference are also the same. The Sankhya proceeded like the Vedantic yoga of knowledge, that is Jnana Yoga, by the buddhi, by the discriminating intelligence. He is using the words vichara and viveka. Vichara, right discrimination, right reflective thought. Make a difference between that which is permanent in you and that which is not permanent in you. That which is the reality and that which is only an appearance. Your body, mind, life is only an appearance. It will disappear in time. But your soul will never disappear. It has always existed and it will always exist. Aja, Nitya, Shashvato, Yam Purana. That's the description in the Gita. Okay, so of the true nature of the soul and the imposition on it of the works of Prakriti. So the Vedantic idea is that your soul is a reality, but the soul here in the physical world is covered up. It is completely enveloped with the works of Prakriti. And what are the works of Prakriti? Your bodily action, your vital emotions, and your mental thoughts. These are the clothes that the soul wears when it comes here, and it has to, for liberation, it has to get rid of these three layers of clothes. Then it knows what it is. Otherwise, the soul is in delusion. You identify yourself with your body, mind, life and think that this is what I am. And that is the illusion and that is the ignorance. Okay. So, the Sankhya proceeded by the Vedantic yoga of knowledge, by the buddhi, by the discriminating intelligence, arrived by reflective thought, vichara, and right discrimination, viveka, of the true nature of the soul. The true nature of the soul, eternal, infinite, unborn, permanent. And the imposition on it of the works of Prakriti. And what are the works of Prakriti? Universally, matter, life and mind, and individually, body, vital, and your mind. Okay, so they are the same. Imposition on it of the works of Prakriti through attachment and identification. You become attached to your body, mind, life, and you identify yourself with the body, mind, life. Just as the Vedantic method arrives by the same means at the right discrimination and the true nature of the self, and of the imposition on it of cosmic appearances by mental illusion, which leads to an egoistic identification and attachment. So essentially, both are the same, Sankhya as well as the Jnana Yoga. But there is a small difference. The difference is that in the Sankhya, the physical world is only mechanical action. It's not unreal. There is no consciousness in it. Purusha, Prakriti. Purusha is the reality. Prakriti is the movement and the images that are there in the physical world. Okay, but they are not unreal. There is It is mechanical and unconscious action. This is the Vedanta. But in the, sorry, this is the Sankhya. And the Vedanta, it is illusion. The physical world is impermanent and illusion. You can use any words you want. That's why Swami is saying precise distinctions don't matter so much. The essential result is the same. When I am seeing something, I can describe in so many ways. Each one will describe in a different way. The same experience is seen and described it by Sankhya in one way and by Vedanta in another way. That's what he's saying. Okay? So this is the difference between the two. But the difference is not in practical results. The practical results, liberation is attained in both. So I go to the next sentence. Identification. In the Vedantic method, Maya ceases for the soul by its return to the true and eternal status as the one self. So in the Vedantic method, okay, you identify yourself with yourself and not your body, mind, life, then the action in the physical world ceases for you. You are not doing any more, but you must be very clear about this. When you get liberation, whether in integral yoga or in the Gita's way or even in the Purusha Prakriti way, the action continues. Okay, your body, mind, life will continue to walk, to eat, to sleep, but you are not doing it. Your consciousness is out and it sees that, oh, somebody else was actually manipulating my body. It is a universal nature which is making my body eat, move, sleep and think and emote. Okay, but I am not doing it. I am watching it as though somebody else is doing all this. It is universal nature which is the Prakriti, which is mechanical action, and it is that which is animating, making your body live, your mind to think, and your heart to have emotions. You are not doing it anymore. Completely you are separated from it. That's liberation. Okay? Whereas in the Sankhya, the world continues to be there, but you are separate from it. Purusha Prakriti. But in the Vedantic idea, the physical world disappears. It's illusion. Don't pay any attention to it. Okay? So that's what is describing the difference between the two. In the Vedantic method, Maya ceases for the soul by its return to the true and eternal status of the self. The self is the Brahman. And remember, what is that Brahman consciousness? Again and again, we must have very clear idea of what the Brahman consciousness is. It's a consciousness in which there is no movement, there is permanent static silence. You are not acting at all, but you are seeing all the action taking place elsewhere, and you realize that you have always lived and you are the true part of the divine. Your soul is a part of the divine. It is unborn. It has always been there and it always will be. And it is immutable but featureless. No way of describing this condition. There is neither color, nor form, nor shape, nor weight, nor anything. Okay, that's the Brahman consciousness. And the cosmic action disappears. In the Sankhya method, okay, this is the Vedantic method. The Sankhya method, the working of the gunas falls to rest by the return of the soul to the true and eternal status of the inactive Purusha. You use slightly different words, and the cosmic action ends for you, for the soul, but for the Prakriti it goes on. Okay, so the Brahman of the Mayavadins is silent, immutable and inactive. So too is the Purusha of the Sankhya. Both are inactive and both are immutable. Therefore, for both, ascetic renunciation of life and works is a necessary means of liberation. Renunciation of life and works. Okay, you have to give up both. Is a necessary means for liberation. But for the yoga of the Gita, as for the Vedantic yoga of works, action is not only a preparation but itself the means of liberation. In the Gita, you don't need to give up the physical world. You don't need to give up action. But you turn all your works as an offering to the divine. The yajna, the sacrifice. Okay, the concept of sacrifice in the Gita is very, very strongly put. And Sri Aurobindo deals also very in great detail in the synthesis of that. In fact, for the sacrifice chapters, 80 pages, 80. Okay. So sacrifice is very important in Sri Aurobindo's yoga also. Continue to do the works, but don't do it for yourself. Give it to the Lord. Whatever you are doing, whether you are eating, whether you are sleeping, whether you are playing football, whether you are buying things in the market, whatever you are doing, think of the divine. Remember and offer. Remember and offer. That's it. So it is. So those yoga is very similar to the Gita, but he goes one step more. The Gita does not speak of the transformation of life. The Gita speaks of remaining in the physical world and continuing to do works, but there is imperfection in the body mind life in the Gita. Okay, but you are not affected by it. Again, I remind you the image of the lotus leaf in water. This is the Padma Patra Ivambhasam. Ivambhasi. Ambasi is water. Okay. Padma Patram. You are like the leaf to lotus leaf. Never gets wet. Through whatever you want, there'll be small drops which slide off. So that's what you are in the Gita. But in Sri Aurobindo yoga, not only you are not affected, but you try to change the conditions in the water itself. In the physical world also, you completely change um, even the water becomes pure if you want. The world also gets transformed. And you have to be a collaborator with the divine for that work. So you have to become like an instrument of the divine in. So it goes one step more than the Gita. So I now go to the next one. But for the yoga of the Gita, as for the Vedantic yoga works, action is not only a preparation in itself, not to be rejected. Use it as an instrument, like a springboard, but itself the means of liberation. And it is the justice of this view which the Gita seeks to bring out with such an unceasing force and insistence. An insistence, unfortunately, which could not prevail in India against the tremendous tide of Buddhism. Because Buddhism, the idea of the illusion of the world, played a huge role, and asceticism was the aim of yoga in India for many years. Okay, for 600 BC, na? So 600 BC to modern times. That now it is 2006. So 2,500 years. Okay, after Buddhism, there was this idea of illusion. The world is Maya. There is nothing in it. Unreal. Get away from it. And what was the result for India? My God. Illiteracy, dirt, falling of standards, all that magnificent splendor that you had in the Vedic periods, okay? Science, technology, metallurgy, surgery, everything was there in the Gita. 64 Shastras describing everything in great detail. Music and science and astronomy, everything was there. All gone. Sri Aurobindo says that when he saw Hinduism, he says it was like a grand temple. But today it's in ruins. It has to be rebuilt. So the Vedic period was absolutely, now it is being slowly revived. There is a general revival of the Indian culture, and now we are slowly getting back our confidence that yes, this was the greatest culture at one. Now it is slowly coming back. Still, the Western educated people still don't believe in that. They still feel that the West is superior, unfortunately. But it is changing slowly. Okay, so unfortunately, Sri is saying it could not prevail in India against the tremendous tide of Buddhism. And there is a footnote. We'll read the footnote. At the same time, the Gita seems to have largely influenced Mahayanist Buddhism, and texts are taken bodily from it into the Buddhistic scriptures. Okay? It may therefore have helped largely to turn Buddhism, originally a school of quietistic and illuminated ascetics, into that religion of meditative devotion and compassionate action, which has so profoundly influenced Asian culture. Because Hinayana and Mahayana, okay, the Hinayana is individual liberation is most important, and Hinayana, Ceylon, Vietnam, okay, Cambodia, all these are the Hinayana. But now, of course, the difference is eliminated. It is largely, and then in Tibet, in China, all the Mahayana. Compassion in the physical world is important. You must help people. Not only you must get your own liberation, but you must also help the others. So this is the difference between the Hinayana and the Mahayana. So Srila is saying the Gita did have an influence, and Buddhism split into two, Hinayana and Mahayana. Only the individual liberation is necessary. Don't care for the world. Hinayana. Mahayana, no, no. You have to get your individual liberation, all right, but you have to also help the physical world through works of compassion, as altruism, philanthropy, humanitarianism. This is what Sandra is saying. So, in India, again, the tremendous tide of Buddhism was lost afterwards in the intensity of ascetic illusionism and the fervor of world shunning saints and devotees, and is only now in modern times. Mind you, he wrote this 100 years ago because the Gita was written um, from 1914 to 1921, 6 years. 1920 perhaps, because Mother came in 1920. So, 6 years the Arya continued, and it is there that he wrote all this. Okay, the Gita has largely remained the same as it was in the Arya. There wasn't much of a revision. There was a revision in Life Divine later on in the 1940s, but not much. Okay, so Gita was left more or less held. Now we go to the next one. Renunciation is indispensable in everything. In all the yogas, renunciation is necessary. But in one yoga, it is physical action and physical world that you renounce. And in the other yogas, it is a subtler. The desire in the mind, the connection, the identification with the body mind life, that has to be cut. That is the renunciation. So, Tyaga and Sannyasa are the two words used in the Gita to describe this. You have to give up. Give up what? Not the physical world and not the actions, but the identification with actions and desire. That's what you have to give up. Renunciation is indispensable, but the true renunciation is the inner rejection of desire and egoism. Without that, the outer physical abandoning of works is a thing unreal and ineffective. With it, it ceases even to be necessary, although it is not forbidden. Now, this is a very interesting thing because there is an English word Puritanism. Puritanism. Okay? So, when you are a Puritan, you are neither telling a lie, nor are you smoking, nor are you drinking. You are a very virtuous person. But are you really virtuous in a spiritual sense? No. The desires in the mind may linger, but you are not giving it expression. So this is you are impure. It's of no use at all. So spiritually speaking, the renunciation needed is not to be puritanical alone, but to be free in the mind, inside. And if you are free in the mind, whether you are eating or not is absolutely of no consequence at all. It's the attitude that determines whether you are free or not. I may give up drinking, I may give up smoking, but the desire is there in me. So it's of no use. That's not a spiritual thing. Okay. Morally it may have a value, but not spiritually. So, and if you give up the desire, whether you are eating or not is not important at all. That's the thing, because you are free. Remember, Srimdo grew up in the West from the age of 7 to 21, okay, 14 years. And what that was the culture there. There used to be, used to have liquor and used to also have smoking. So he had all these things. But the moment he came to know that mother was not very much in favor of all this, he just gave it up. without any problem at all. So, this is what we have to understand that the real renunciation is the inward renunciation, the psychological connection, the link between your desires and the action. Give up the link. That's the important thing. So, I read that again very carefully. Renunciation is indispensable, but the true renunciation is the inner rejection of desire and egoism. Without that, the outer physical abandoning of works is a thing unreal and ineffective. With it, it ceases even to be necessary. Okay? Although it is not forbidden. In other words, if you have desire for, I gave you a very solid example of rasagullas, okay? So, if I have desire and I am eating rasagullas, I am going to suffer when there is no rasgulla. If I have given up the desire, I can give up also the physical eating. It's not forbidden, I can do that. But I can also eat without any problem. So that's what he's saying. The action, giving up of the eating of rasagullas is not compulsory. You can do, but if you want to do, you can, and if you don't want to do, it's perfectly okay. Okay, that's what he's saying. Although it is not forbidden, knowledge is essential. There is no higher force for liberation. But works with knowledge are also needed. So, in the Gita, the words used are Jnana Deepena Bhasvata. It is knowledge that purifies. The light of knowledge purifies. Jnana Deepena Bhasvata. That is the one that purifies you. Knowledge is the purifier. So knowledge is essential. And what is knowledge? Liberation. To know that you are the soul and not the body, mind, life. That is the knowledge needed. Knowledge is essential. There is no higher force for liberation. But works with knowledge are also needed in the Gita, okay? Not in the other yogas. In the Gita as well as in Sri yoga, you have to continue to work in the physical world. But works with knowledge are also needed. By the union of knowledge and works, the soul dwells entirely in the Brahmic status, not only in repose and inactive calm, but in the very midst and stress and violence of action. This is what is being recommended to Arjuna. Because Arjuna is saying, I won't fight, I want to give up the physical action. But Sri Krishna is telling him, give up the desire and the liking and the disliking for action or inaction and continue to do the work you have to do. Because in this case, your case, the continuation of action is necessary. So do it. But the continuation of action is not compulsory. Remember in Sri Aurobido's case, what was it? He was absolutely attached to his work of liberation of India. And he didn't want to give it up. But he was told to give it up. I'll put you in jail so that you lose your, and I'll throw you to Pondicherry. Give up this physical work of liberating India. That work others will do. So it is optional. Giving up of the action in the physical world is optional. In the Gita as well as in the integral yoga. Okay. So giving up of the desire in the mind, the link, that is not an option. It's a necessary thing for liberation. In all the yogas. That is the important thing. Then he brings in another idea. Devotion. The devotion is not there in the Sankhya, nor is it there in the Jnana Yoga. Bhakti is not important. Knowledge is important. But in the Gita, devotion is very important. Bhakti Yoga. Devotion is all important. But works with devotion are also important. By the union of knowledge, devotion and works, the soul is taken up into the highest status of the Ishvara to dwell there in the Purushottama, who is master at once of the eternal spiritual calm and the eternal cosmic activity. This is the synthesis of the Gita. The Gita says, don't do only Jnana Yoga and get only knowledge. That's fine. But then you get to the impersonal aspects of the divine. You get a state of consciousness. You get peace, you get calm, you may get also love, but there is no God anywhere. In the Jnana Yoga as well as in Buddhism and in Mayavada also. But if you have devotion, then you can get the personal aspect of the divine. The personal aspect of the divine is important. Then you can go to the Ishvara consciousness. Okay. And in the Gita, the word Ishvara is not used. Srimda uses the word Ishvara, but in the Gita, Purushottama, Uttama Purusha. You get the, if you have devotion, then you will get also the personal aspect of the divine as well as the impersonal aspect of the divine. This is the synthesis of the Gita. So Gita is one of the synthesis. He has listed you right in the beginning of the book. What are the syntheses that have occurred in India? Okay, the Vedic period was a synthesis. The Tantric was a synthesis. The Gita is a synthesis also, and Srimdu's own integral yoga is a synthesis. The other yogas are not synthetic; they reject. The Jnana Yoga rejects the physical world. Buddhism also rejects the physical world. Mayavada also rejects the physical world. And in fact, the Jnana Yoga rejects also Bhakti. And the Bhakti Yoga rejects knowledge. No, not necessary. But Gita as well as Srimad says, no, get all. Then your understanding of the divine will be integral. Okay? So, we have 5-6 minutes more. So we can read one small para. It's not a very big one. But apart from the distinction between Sankhya and Yoga, one of you has to read. Pallavi, you read? If you are there, yeah. Yes, your mic is, yeah, coming off, on, off, on. Will you read? Otherwise, okay, go ahead. But apart.
But apart from the Sanskrit knowledge and theory of there was another and similar opposition in the Vedanta itself. And this also the Gita has to deal with, to correct, confusing, restate the Aryan spiritual culture. This was the distinction between Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda, between the original thought that led to the philosophy of Purva Mimamsa, the Veda Vada, and that which led to the philosophy of the Uttara Mimamsa, the Brahmavada, between those who dwelt in the tradition of the Vedic hymns of the Vedic sacrifice and those who put these aside as a lower knowledge and laid stress on the lofty metaphysical knowledge which emerges from the Upanishads. For the pragmatic mind of the Vedavadins, the Aryan religion of the rishis meant the strict performance of the Vedic sacrifices and the use of the sacred Vedic mantras in order to possess all human desires in this world, wealth, progeny, victory, every kind of good fortune, and the joys of immortality in paradise beyond. For the idealism of the Brahmavadins, this was only a preliminary preparation, and the real object of man, true Purushartha, began with his turning to the knowledge of the Brahman, which would give him the true immortality of an ineffable spiritual bliss.
What happened? Your internet was fluctuating, so probably you've lost the connection.
Whatever may have been of the Veda, this was the distinction which has long established itself, and therefore the Gita has to deal.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a little bit of a philosophy. It's telling you the in the Sankhya philosophy, it's split up into two, Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. So we will do this next time a little more in detail. But the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda, okay, this was the Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. Mimamsa is also a branch of Indian philosophy. And the Karma Kanda is that you pay a lot of attention to the sacrificial rites, okay? You do puja and you do the, in fact there is a footnote there we can read. And Jnana Kanda was, there is no need for all these outward ceremonial rites, like in all religions. We have the temple worship and all these, the sacrifice and the yajna. You make a fire and go on reciting mantras and throwing. This is the karma kanda. But the jnana kanda is more important, it is turned towards knowledge. It is not only sacrificial rites and outer symbolism. That is not there. It is, it is there everywhere. And even in Christianity, you have the same thing. No? You have the baptism with holy water, and you have also the waving of lights and all these. These are the karma kanda. So this the distinction we will see next time, because Mimamsa is also one of the branches of Indian philosophy. So we will look at this next time, because we have got only 2 minutes left.